Back in the late 1990s, there was a widespread consensus that humanity had finally arrived at the finish line. The Cold War was over, global trade was expanding, and the assumption was that secular democracy and technological progress were the permanent destinations for every society on Earth. We had seen warnings that history doesn't always move in a straight line. In 1979, Iran was a rapidly modernizing nation that threw itself violently into reverse, replacing secular laws with a strict traditionalist theocracy. At the time, many observers treated this as an anomaly. Today, that retreat is no longer an anomaly. It is the defining geopolitical trend of the 2020s. We are watching global powers construct political movements by reaching deep into the past, weaponizing ancient religious icons and imperial myths to justify modern conquests. The Enlightenment taught us to view history as a straight, upward trajectory of logic, science, and expanding rights. But right now, that timeline is snapping and curling backward. Across the globe, billions of people are actively looking at the trajectory of the modern world and shouting, "Stop!" They look at the future we are building and see a landscape that is isolating, polluted, scattered, and chaotic. They are actively rejecting the destination we've been walking toward. This global friction exists because while our political and economic systems expanded our individual choices, they simultaneously dissolved the local, stable communities that once made those choices feel meaningful. By prioritizing the global and the individual, we left the communal to wither. Modernity promised that total personal autonomy, the freedom to live anywhere and be anything, would lead to a more fulfilled human. But as we optimized our lives for social mobility and career flexibility, we traded away the deep, unchosen bonds of family and neighborhood. The result is a population of free, but increasingly lonely individuals. Instead of a utopia, we built the machine. This is the hyper-efficient, technocratic reality of modern life. It is an architecture optimized for commerce, algorithmic control, efficiency, and data extraction. It measures everything, but it feels nothing. By trading away our deep cultural roots for absolute personal autonomy, we inadvertently became floating atoms. We are highly efficient, fully independent individuals trapped inside a system devoid of higher meaning. Reactionary traditionalism draws its strength from a deep philosophical lineage that views the modern world as a terminal patient. These thinkers believe that the chaos of the present is the inevitable result of a culture that has lost its soul. Writing at the end of the First World War, historian Oswald Spengler argued that cultures operate like living organisms. They are born, they mature, and they eventually decay. Spengler believed the West had exhausted its creative, expansive youth and entered its bureaucratic winter, a phase driven by technology and administration, stripped of moral authority. This diagram visualizes a concept from another key thinker, René Guénon, who called our era the reign of quantity. We celebrate modern science for its objective measurement of reality. But Guénon argued that our science is like an investigator trying to understand an orchestra by measuring how the instrument is built, while remaining entirely deaf to the music. We obsess over the physical and blind ourselves to the spiritual. Against this cold, quantified modernity, traditionalists offer a powerful alternative. They promise roots, tying you to a specific lineage and soil. They offer enchantment, reintroducing a sacred, ordered universe. And they promise protection, shielding your family from the relentless social engineering of modern institutions. We have to admit that the traditionalist critique is uncomfortably accurate. When they point out the spiritual diseases ravaging the 21st century, the loneliness, the hyperconsumerism, the lack of belonging, they are identifying real wounds in the modern psyche. But an accurate diagnosis does not guarantee a safe cure. The fatal flaw in the traditionalist solution is that it relies on retreating to a static, hierarchical utopia. They prescribe a return to a peaceful, settled past, but that past is historically fictional. Human history has never been characterized by people remaining safely inside their villages. Early humans built deep communal bonds, but they still pushed small canoes out into the open, unpredictable ocean to see what was beyond the horizon. We have always risked our safety to expand our reach. This is the unresolvable psychological tension of human nature. We desperately require the safety of a home base, the warmth of a shared culture, but we are also biologically driven to leave that base and explore the frontier. There is also a severe moral cost to rewinding history. Over the last few centuries, the Enlightenment drive forward dismantled legal slavery, dramatically expanded civil rights, and engineered the largest reduction in global poverty ever recorded. If we attempt the traditionalist cure, we forfeit the moral framework that made those victories possible. We would have to amputate our innate drive for discovery, abandoning centuries of hard-won moral evolution, simply to feel safe again. We are currently caught in a false binary. On one side, a lonely, hyper-individualistic future managed by algorithms. On the other, a rigid, historically illiterate retreat into the past. But the root of our modern crisis isn't progress itself. The crisis began when we severed progress from our moral foundations. In our rush to build an autonomous world, we actively stopped teaching the civilizational traditions that told us how to live in it. We abandoned the humanities. We stopped passing down the philosophy and historical debates that equipped previous generations to navigate complex ethical terrain. By tossing out that collected wisdom, we lost the vocabulary to answer basic questions about duty, beauty, and what we owe to each other. When we stop teaching people why they should live, they focus entirely on how to live, how to make more money, how to build faster tools, how to optimize systems. Without a moral compass rooted in history and philosophy, our technological power grows while our sense of purpose shrinks. We have built a world with a massive, powerful engine, but we've stopped teaching anyone how to steer. The alternative to reactionary traditionalism is a humanities renaissance. We have to actively reintegrate the great philosophical conversations back into modern life. When you study the great thinkers, you realize that tradition is not a rigid set of rules. It is an ongoing argument across centuries. We must redefine the function of tradition. It is not a museum we hide inside to escape the anxieties of the modern world. Instead, it is the solid ground that we must forcefully push off from to successfully navigate the uncertainties of the future. We cannot survive the isolating, technocratic future as disconnected atoms, but we also cannot survive by retreating into the past. We have to step out onto the frontier, carrying the deep moral wisdom of our ancestors forward with us into the unknown.